North Carolina's mood tracker is what we're doing tonight. And along with Arkansas, like I told you to lead the show, this has been our most requested program to do a mood tracker on. And the mood tracker, I remind you about every fourth or fifth program. The mood tracker is just us, saying open wide, and we stick the thermometer in the mouth, and we watch our stopwatch here. Okay, beep, beep, beep. We take it out, and we just look at what the mood is around the program. Now, I went over to InsideCarolina.com today, and there is a very, very active thread over there, even to this very moment as we're on air, because I'm looking at it on my screen right now. And I just go, as I sometimes do, and I say, hey, what in one word or phrase is your current mood? I'm asking folks on the message board there, what is your mood towards North Carolina football? So some of the best responses, or the most popular responses, a lot of people are thrilled, ecstatic, hungry, finally, just one word, finally, and then our turn, our time, overly confident. So, how did I sum that up? Here's how I summed it up. It's just run as fast as you can. Just run. I think one of the most important life lessons that you and I learned from the movie Jurassic Park, well, the most important lesson was life finds a way. But the second most important life lesson from Jurassic Park is you got to know when to run. You remember Robert, who was the guy that just walked around looking like a safari guide the whole movie? And then you had Ellie, who was the paleobotanist. And so if you'll remember in Jurassic Park, you got Robert, and then you got Ellie, and they got to walk straight through that forest they got to walk through a forest full of velociraptors is what they have to do. And so one of them chooses to tiptoe his way because he's got a gun, and he's hunted these things his whole life. He's raised them. And then the other one just decides to run. Which one survived? Ellie survived. And she ended up with Samuel L. Jackson's arm severed on her shoulder, but she did survive. Now, Robert, he gets devoured because he tiptoed. He was very hesitant. He didn't want to make any noise. Well, that's not what North Carolina's attitude is right now. Their mood is, we're just going to run. You got a Raptor out here. You got Clemson. But see, we've already faced them. See, they would be like if Robert, when he went up against the Raptor, if he got a couple of shots on the jaw of the Raptor before the Raptor bit him, that's kind of what Carolina was able to do to Clemson. They played him a couple of years ago. See, Miami got knocked out when they played Clemson this past year. Carolina got them 2 years ago and nearly beat them. I was in Auburn's press box. I was watching the game, and they're down there trying to go for two and win the game. It was 21-20. That was the final. But I say all that to remind you, when Mac Brown walked in the door here, when he showed up, he didn't feel anything out. And that's kind of the way of the world in the ACC right now. Everyone sort of look around the room and say, are you going to do anything? Okay. It's like everyone waiting for a line to form at the buffet. Well, Mac Brown walked in, and he looked around and said, no one's going to go? I'll go. Clemson's already gone through here 5 times. I'll go. They didn't feel anything out. There was an immediate recruiting impact. They immediately took Clemson to the wire, as I said, not in his 4th or 5th year, but in his first year. They didn't wait in line, and they didn't let the ACC define them. When I think sometimes subconsciously, if you're in a division like the SEC West, you understand that you're constantly fighting to keep your nose above water because everyone or just about everyone can beat you any given week, like even Arkansas, who you presume is going to be at the bottom of the division. No, man. Even Mississippi State, who you presume is going to be at the bottom of the division. Well, play them opening weekend in Baton Rouge. See how close to the bottom of the division they are. It doesn't feel that way in the ACC. Whether it is or not, it doesn't feel that way. And so sometimes folks have a tendency to sort of ease into the ACC, sort of ease into that role. That's not what Mac Brown did. And here's the other couple of bullet points that you really need to know about Carolina if you haven't been paying attention. And this is what has people so excited. It doesn't feel very paper tigerish. It doesn't feel like it's cotton candy but no steak because of 2 things. Number one, they got quarterback figured out now. They got Sam Howell, but they've got quarterback figured out in the future, unless, injury or something happens. They got Drake May, who was committed to Alabama, and they convinced to decommit and come there. And speaking of decommitments and recruiting, look at what they did this past cycle. Look at what they have been doing and what they're in the process of doing. I mean, they're in a very talent-rich area. The Carolinas is sort of a perennially underappreciated area because it doesn't seem like one program is just totally dominated over there. Clemson's done good, Georgia's done good, Bama's gone in there occasionally. But Carolina said, not this year. You want to have some fun? I don't have it off the top of my head, but go look at their signing class this past cycle, the 2021 cycle, and it'll be easier for you to count how many kids didn't come from the state of North Carolina. I think they got 1 from South Carolina. They got like 100 of them from North Carolina. But it's also a sneaky good place that's becoming a destination for coaches to go. That's important. Everyone's looked at what Dabo has at Clemson, and they said, good for him, man. He's got this magic formula up there, secret elixir that no one wants to leave. Now, that's obviously due in large part to the culture they've instilled there. It's a nice place to live. That entire area is a nice place to live. Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and the surrounding area is an incredible place to live. Listen, if you got some truth serum in a bunch of coaches in the college football world, a bunch of them would tell you, hey, if all things were equal, if that place offered me an opportunity to compete at the highest levels, I would have gone there a long time ago. It's just Carolina hasn't been there for a while. North Carolina hasn't really been a player. They're a player now. And so I'm not talking about any guys that are about to leave, but when they have a slot to fill on that coaching staff, it's not going to stay open for very long. And Mack Brown is going to have his choice of a lot of really, really qualified candidates coast to coast. So as it pertains to this year, I think all eyes are turning to just the defensive side of the ball in general. Jay Bateman's the coordinator there right now. Here's the luxury he has. He knows they're going to score. And so when you watch them this year, there were some big moments where they couldn't get stops, but also they weren't really forcing you to work all that hard. They don't need to be top 10 in the country in like yards per play or anything like that. It'd be nice, but what Jay Bateman has to do, and they got a lot of guys coming back this year. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's overrated. What they have to do is they got to find a way to turn the ball over, and they have to be situationally great. They don't have to be statistically great. They need to be situationally great. That's what programs in the past that have gone on to do big things but didn't necessarily have elite defenses. If you look at the situationals, those data points, you're going to find as you dive in a little bit deeper than just, total yards per game, total points per game, you're going to find an area or two they shined in. Normally it's turnovers and red zone efficiency. Forcing threes instead of sevens, that kind of deal. That's what they got to figure out a way to do. So North Carolina, I did not have a single person even offer up so much as a breath of trepidation when we were talking about them today. So there is unbridled optimism and excitement. It's just time to run for North Carolina.